Like, I want to eat it. I want to eat good food. So therefore, if I can feed myself good food, can I feed other people good food too?
Yeah,
And then,
because
you know,
the world needs you to produce more food in a conscious way, so that I want your products to make it to the inner city where they can be
yeah,
available
yeah,
affordably too.
Right. Well, and the
really,
thing is too, the affordability piece, it's really trying to have the public understand how much better they can feel. They're not, there's been so much misinformation and so much just unknowingly produced foods that we've gotten used to in the last 60, 70 years in the
you guys
mass
know
market.
who Volkert Engelsman is? He's a Dutchman. He had the largest biodynamic fruit supply in EU. He's
No.
pretty well known. He's a Dutch guy. Anyways, I saw him talk 2 weeks ago. He came from Holland, and he's where I got the words prototyping the future. So this is part of his message, and I was like, yeah, this guy's onto something. He really super interesting guy. Has seen all of these different European layers and where Europe is kind of going, and it's very interesting. They're very concerned about soil health, very concerned about being able to continue producing food locally and keeping cultural markets alive and stuff. There's
But
kind of like
and that's part of their culture.
of that, you know?
That's
And
part of the culture.
There's work being done everywhere around the world, and we just don't hear about it because we just hear the bad headlines.
Every
right.
time, every time I've
Yeah.
been to Europe, okay, when you go to Italy and France, every region has that or a
What
history of
countries
food.
were not on the ultra processed food map? Four were Canada, the UK, US, and Australia, Italy, and France. The
Right.
ultra processed food adoption of those countries, I'll tell you what it is 65 to 75% on those four countries I just mentioned. France and Italy, 13 and 14%.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that is that big classification of ultra processed food. I don't even like to look at it that way.
Yeah.
They just honor food in a different way.
It's part of
That's
the
the way I
culture.
look at it.
We
Beyond
just
the
need to
culture, though, they
copy
have a
the Italian.
taste. Okay, so every time I've been
They
to
don't
France, it's a
compromise in the flavor of
taste.
tomatoes. They don't
No,
grow them in a way that they don't have flavor. They grow them in a way they have flavor. And how
not
is that?
only that, families know they can taste it. Like it's in the art of winemaking, even like the way that I was taught to make wine in my family when I was a toddler was to taste the grape, watch the weather and taste the grape. That's how you knew when it was time to pull. If it was going to rain too early and it was even close to the right taste, you got to pull the grapes before it rained for a week or whatever, and it turned bad. But that art, when I had the science part of it, of course it makes sense when I got to college and I had the whole science of winemaking. But that art is not lost in many countries. In South America, the food before it's ready. In Central America, in Mexico, in France, every region has their special cheese that they know if they move and try to make that cheese in another region, it'll be close, but
Mhm,
it'll be
mhm,
different.
mhm.
And everybody, that makes cage cheeses in Spain or even in Switzerland and Germany and things,
Kimchi, kefir, sauerkraut, any fermented product is
everything
fermented to the
has a
local environment.
region.
It's, you know,
Exactly. And they know
Here in
it.
America, we value convenience
And rent
until
it
that
for cheese
changes.
making instead of actually
well, we
fermenting it.
value it because we've been
Convenience and
told
cost.
that's the thing to value because the capitalistic environment pressurizes our idea that convenience is
Speed.
necessary. In other
Engineer
places,
speed.
they don't necessarily have that. They sleep in the afternoon, they eat late, they hang out together. It's just like, I wonder, it's like sometimes I think to myself, like the way we live is the reason why it's like this. Like our solution of living is the problem itself. Culturally, we need to culturally adopt some of these different practices. It just seems like good medicine to me.
Yeah, in
There's
Italy,
proof on it.
life expectancy in Italy was about 80 years old in 2000, and now it's about 82.
We're
Meanwhile,
going
at the same
backwards
time, our,
here.
our life expectancy went down. But you look at guns and disease of despair, and so it's not just nutrition, but there is something to be said about a society that values certain things and devalues others. And here in the U.S., we're a little bit in opposite on some of these things.
Not an opposite. One thing though about local agriculture, I want to get back to for a minute. I met a lot of I guess it was around 25 years ago, there was a trend for a lot of professional younger people to suddenly buy old farms and turn them into new wineries. Remember that trend that was like big and crazy? And I met a lot of the local ones in Jersey that started up around then. And Jersey is an interesting climate. And the reason that when it was a colony, that King George decided that Jersey was the winemaking colony was because it covers both of the primary temperature ranges for white and red grapes, as Europe knew it, for making wine. And it had a lot of wild grapes growing here. So it was interesting because I met these winers who they knew they couldn't get all the grapes they wanted for a certain flavor. There were certain things they can make every year, no question, but they needed more variety in order to compete with the larger winemakers and the distributors. All of these great suppliers and these winemakers, they formed a massive network that goes international on making fresh grape exchanges and delivery systems. I wonder if that could be remodeled into regenerative ag or into herbs or into special botanicals for beyond herb use,
Look into
You see it
Trillium.
yeah, like I see it. Sometimes I see ads for, a farmer that's growing, just one type of product and they're across the country. Well, he'll ship it fresh to me.
But it's not, these aren't
when
just ads. They formed an entire network that wasn't through a
Right.
distributor. This was early on because by 2005 or 2000, before 2010, between 2005 and 10, they were telling me, and then I met some winemakers in Oregon and Washington State that said the same thing, that there was this whole, I don't know
They did
anything
there
about
is, from information theory and social connection models, they built a circuit. And what we need to do is build the new circuits, which involves small and medium sized local producers into the model. And they aren't in the circuit yet. So you kind of got to almost jump out of the circuit, go to this other circuit, and then jump back over.
With AI and technology today versus what those guys did back then, it would make sense to me to actually almost talk to the ones that started it back then, right? Which I know they're all on computer now, but then wondering, if there's a way of doing it better on AI and on technology platforms. Because right now everybody's using social media.
There's already this type of thing for many. Spice trade has.
Sure, spice. Yeah.
Yeah, there's global trades for, cocoa and coffee have these types of systems.
But I'm talking about here on a local level to make it affordable for regional